legend, an icon, an enigma. Kenneth Copeland, at 88 years old, is a renowned evangelist who continues to live in unrivaled luxury, surrounded by multi-million-dollar mansions, a stunning art collection, and the kind of wealth that few achieve. From his historic estate to his collection of classic cars, Copeland's lifestyle is as extravagant as his unforgettable career. In this video, we dive into the world of the man who defined Hollywood awesomeness, his multi-million-dollar projects, and the legacy that has kept his net worth steadily growing. Stay tuned as we reveal the incredible life of Kenneth Copeland, the legend that never fades. Kenneth Copeland's rise to fame is a story of hard work, faith, and determination. Born in 1936 in Lubbock, Texas, he was raised in a family where religion was always a part of life. But it wasn't until his late 20s that Copeland fully embraced his calling. He initially struggled to find his path, trying his hand at various careers, including being a singer and a pilot. However, his life took a significant turn when he had a personal, spiritual encounter that changed everything. He became deeply committed to the Christian faith and soon felt called to ministry. What set Kenneth apart from others in the ministry was his charismatic personality and his ability to connect with people. He wasn't just preaching a message, he was living it. His dynamic presence on television made him a perfect fit for evangelism in the 20th century. Through his television program, The Believer's Voice of Victory, which reached millions of households, Copeland became a household name. His teachings resonated with people who believed that faith could bring both spiritual and material wealth. Kenneth's message was simple: by believing in God's promises and using your faith, you could live a prosperous and successful life. This idea of faith as a tool for success helped him build a massive following, and his ministry expanded rapidly. Kenneth's rise to fame wasn't without controversy, but his message resonated with a large audience, who saw his ministry as a beacon of hope in uncertain times. His energetic preaching, combined with his personal success story, made him a role model for many. By the 1980s, Copeland was no longer just a preacher, he was a celebrity in the Christian world. His ministry had grown into a multi-million-dollar operation, and he was often seen as a leading voice in American Christianity. His success wasn't just about preaching, it was about building a platform that could reach and inspire people across the globe. Kenneth Copeland's rise to fame forever changed the landscape of evangelical Christianity, influencing the direction of modern Christian broadcasting and the prosperity gospel movement. Kenneth Copeland's transformation from a young, struggling man to one of the most influential figures in the Christian world wasn't a simple, smooth path. It was a journey marked by change, faith, and a series of challenges that shaped the man he would become. In the early days of his ministry, there were moments of uncertainty, both in his personal life and his calling. But those struggles became the foundation for a new path, one that would lead him to change the landscape of modern Christianity. Kenneth's journey began with a deep personal encounter with God in the late 1960s. After years of searching for meaning and purpose, he had a life-altering experience that led him to fully embrace Christianity. He dedicated his life to spreading the gospel, but it wasn't an instant success. His first years in ministry were filled with struggle. His message, though passionate, didn't resonate with everyone. At first, it was difficult for Kenneth to make ends meet, and there were times when he questioned whether he was on the right path. But then, as if by divine timing, everything changed. The 1970s were a pivotal decade for Copeland, both spiritually and professionally. His message began to take shape, focusing on faith, prosperity, and the belief that God's blessings were not limited to the spiritual realm, but could manifest in the material world as well. This idea would come to define Copeland's ministry and his unique approach to preaching. In 1977, Kenneth Copeland took a significant step by founding Kenneth Copeland Ministries, KCM. His television show, The Believer's Voice of Victory, would become the cornerstone of his rise to fame. Through this platform, he was able to share his message of faith and prosperity with a larger audience, reaching millions of viewers across the globe. His teachings resonated with people who were looking for more than just traditional sermons. Copeland spoke to a generation that was beginning to understand the power of belief and the potential to shape their own futures through faith. However, with success came its own set of challenges. As Kenneth Copeland's ministry grew, so did scrutiny. While his teachings were embraced by a large portion of the Christian community, they also sparked controversy. The prosperity gospel, a belief that faith in God could lead to financial success, was met with criticism from many traditional Christian groups. Some saw it as an exploitation of faith, a dangerous blend of materialism and spirituality. Copeland found himself at the center of these debates, facing accusations of promoting a get-rich-quick theology that conflicted with traditional Christian teachings. Despite these challenges, Copeland remained undeterred. He continued to expand his ministry, reaching new heights with his teachings on prosperity and healing. By the 1980s, his message had reached millions, and KCM had become a multi-million-dollar operation. Copeland was no longer just a preacher. He was a brand, a symbol of faith and success. His charismatic personality, paired with his message of empowerment, drew large crowds, and his influence in the Christian community continued to grow. However, as Kenneth's public profile grew, so did personal struggles. Behind the scenes, there were challenges that tested not only his faith, but also his personal relationships. His marriage, while strong, faced its own difficulties as the pressures of ministry and fame began to take a toll. The demands of being a public figure, combined with the pressure to maintain the success of his ministry, created tensions in his personal life. But Copeland, driven by his belief in God's plan, didn't let these struggles define him. Instead, he used them as stepping stones for growth. He continued to adapt his message and approach, becoming one of the leading voices in the global Christian movement. His ministry not only focused on preaching but also on charitable work, global outreach, and the establishment of the Kenneth Copeland Bible College, which became a beacon for those wanting to learn about his unique teaching. Yet, for all the success and the fame, there were always whispers of criticism. His lavish lifestyle, his multi-million-dollar homes, his private jets, all became symbols of the wealth and success that came with his prosperity gospel teachings. Critics questioned whether these luxuries were truly in line with Christian values, and whether Copeland had become too focused on material wealth. But Copeland's answer was always the same. He believed that his wealth was a sign of God's blessing and a testament to the power of faith. He argued that, as a preacher, he had every right to enjoy the fruits of his labor just as anyone else would in their profession. The 1990s and 2000s brought even more growth for Kenneth Copeland Ministries. His influence spread worldwide, with followers from every corner of the globe. His teachings were no longer just a fixture on Christian television. They were incorporated into seminars, books, and global outreach programs. Copeland's message was clear. Faith, prosperity, and healing were available to everyone who believed. But as the years went on, the challenges began to weigh heavier. Copeland found himself facing not just external criticism, but internal battles as well. The pressures of maintaining his ministry, the constant demands on his time, and the scrutiny from the media began to take their toll. Copeland's health, once strong and resilient, began to show signs of stress. There were moments when he questioned whether the burden of being a public figure and preacher was too much, yet, as always, he leaned on his faith, trusting that God would provide the strength to continue. Through it all, Kenneth Copeland remained focused on his mission, spreading the message of faith, prosperity, and healing to the world. His transformation from a struggling preacher to one of the most influential figures in modern Christianity is a testament to his resilience and determination. While his journey was not without its struggles and controversies, it is clear that Kenneth Copeland's path was shaped by his unwavering belief in his calling. The road to recovery for Copeland, both personally and professionally, has been long and challenging, but it is also a story of overcoming adversity. Through faith, perseverance, and a commitment to his ministry, Copeland has proven that the journey, no matter how difficult, is worth the reward. The legacy of Kenneth Copeland is one of transformation, not just of himself, but of the way faith is preached and lived in the modern world. The storm that hit Kenneth Copeland's life didn't come all at once. It came in waves, building over time, and eventually testing everything he had worked for: his health, his ministry, and his faith. What began as a few small signs eventually grew into a full-blown crisis. Copeland, a man who had always been seen as a pillar of strength and vitality, found himself facing challenges that were far beyond his control. At first, it was subtle. Copeland started noticing little things: tiredness that wouldn't go away, a lack of energy he couldn't shake, and a sense of being off balance. He had always been an energetic figure, traveling the world, speaking at events, and preaching to thousands. His schedule was packed, but it had always been. It wasn't unusual for him to go from one event to another without much rest, but this time, something felt different. He chalked it up to the demands of his lifestyle. After all, he was no stranger to stress and hard work. But as weeks turned into months, the signs became harder to ignore. At first, it was just a few days of feeling run down. and then it became more frequent. He started missing events, which was rare for him. His energy seemed to dip lower, and it wasn't just physical exhaustion, it was something deeper. It felt like his body was resisting the demands he had placed on it for decades. And as the symptoms continued to worsen, Kenneth couldn't help but feel the weight of the realization settling in. Something was wrong. He sought medical advice, hoping it would be something easily treatable, a quick fix, but the diagnosis wasn't that simple. Doctors discovered that Kenneth was suffering from a number of health issues, many of which had built up over the years due to the relentless pace of his life. His health problems were complex, involving a combination of stress issues, as well as the toll that years of travel, preaching, and living under constant pressure had taken on his body. These weren't the kind of issues you could ignore or push through. The news hit Kenneth hard. For a man who had always believed in the power of faith and perseverance, this felt like an unexpected betrayal from his own body. He had spent his life preaching about overcoming adversity, yet now he found himself at the mercy of his own physical limitations. His once vibrant health was now compromised, and he was faced with the daunting task of confronting a new reality. It was a reality he wasn't prepared for. As he began to step back from the hectic demands of his ministry, Kenneth found himself struggling with more than just his physical health. There was a deep sense of fear that began to settle in. For decades, his identity had been wrapped up in his work. His ministry wasn't just a job, it was his calling, his life's purpose. But now, with his health failing and the pressure mounting, he had to ask himself, could he continue the work that had defined him for so long? Would his health allow him to keep going, or had the time come for him to step away? The stress took a toll on his mind as well. Copeland had always been a man of faith, trusting in God's plan. But now, that faith was being tested in ways he hadn't anticipated. He felt the weight of the decisions he was making. Despite these challenges, Kenneth did what he always did. He leaned into his faith. He prayed for guidance and strength, trusting that God would show him the way forward. But this time, the answer wasn't immediate. The road ahead wasn't clear, and there were days when it felt like the storm would never pass. He questioned his own purpose and wondered if this was the end of his ministry. Would he be able to continue to preach and inspire others? Or was it time to let go of the calling that had defined his life? The health issues and setbacks took a toll on his ministry as well. As Kenneth Copeland pulled back from the public eye, his ministry was forced to adapt. The demands of running a global organization couldn't be met with the same level of energy and enthusiasm that he had once brought to it. While Copeland was still active in his ministry, it was clear that the weight of leadership had shifted. The people who had once relied on him for direction now found themselves facing a new reality as they navigated through the uncertainty surrounding his health and future. At the same time, Copeland's family played a crucial role in helping him navigate these turbulent times. His wife Gloria had always been his rock, but now, more than ever, her strength and support were vital. She stood by him through the difficult moments, offering the encouragement he needed to keep going. The couple's children, who had grown up around the ministry, were also there to help shoulder the burden. They rallied around their father, offering their support both personally and professionally, ensuring that the ministry could continue even as Kenneth took the time he needed to focus on his health. The challenges continued to mount. As his health deteriorated, Kenneth faced more difficult decisions about his role in the ministry and how to transition responsibilities to others. He had to confront the reality that the demanding lifestyle he had once led wasn't sustainable anymore. The idea of stepping away from the public eye, even for a short time, felt like a loss of identity. But with each passing day, the reality became clearer. Something had to give. This period of uncertainty tested Copeland in ways he had never imagined. It was a time of reflection, a time of slowing down, and a time of accepting that not everything was within his control. But it was also a time of growth. The storm was far from over, but through it all, Kenneth remained determined to find peace. With his health still a concern, the next steps in his journey were uncertain. But one thing was clear: his story wasn't over. Despite the physical and emotional toll, Copeland continued to inspire those around him, showing them that even in the darkest times, faith and perseverance could light the way forward. Kenneth Copeland's legacy is one that continues to resonate deeply within the faith world, even as the years go by. His journey, marked by numerous challenges, breakthroughs, and an unwavering commitment to his beliefs, has shaped the landscape of modern evangelical Christianity. From his humble beginnings to his rise as a prominent figure in the faith community, Copeland's influence is far-reaching, and his impact is felt by millions of followers worldwide. The story of Kenneth Copeland's lasting influence begins with his early days in ministry. In the 1960s, Copeland was just another young man looking to find his place in the world. He had a powerful passion for God and an undeniable charisma that drew others in. But it was in the late 1960s and early 1970s that Copeland began to develop a deep connection to the Word of God, which would later fuel his rise to prominence. What truly set Copeland apart from others was his ability to communicate complex biblical teachings in a way that felt both accessible and personal. His messages were grounded in Scripture, but they also contained an element of practicality that resonated with everyday people. His unique combination of spiritual depth and relatability made his teachings appealing to a wide audience, from young believers to seasoned ministers. In the early years of his ministry, Copeland's focus was on healing and prosperity teachings. He became known for his strong beliefs in the power of faith to bring about physical healing and financial blessings. These messages were radical. As his ministry grew, Copeland built a media empire that would solidify his place as one of the most influential voices in Christian television. Through his TV program Believer's Voice of Victory, Copeland reached millions of viewers worldwide. The program, which began as a modest broadcast, soon became one of the most watched Christian television shows. It allowed Copeland to share his message of faith, healing, and prosperity with an ever-growing audience. In addition to his media presence, Copeland's ministry expanded through conferences, crusades, and books. He became known for his dynamic speaking style, often delivering messages that were both motivational and deeply rooted in Scripture. His conferences, where he would speak alongside other well-known ministers, attracted thousands of people who were eager to hear his teachings. It was during these events that Copeland's charisma and larger-than-life personality became even more apparent. His ability to connect with his audience, whether through preaching or personal interactions, earned him the loyalty and admiration of his followers. But even as his fame grew, Copeland's ministry faced significant challenges. His teachings were often criticized, especially by those who felt that his prosperity gospel was a distortion of traditional Christian teachings. The notion that God rewards faith with material wealth and health did not sit well with everyone, and Copeland faced considerable backlash from more conservative factions of the Christian community. His critics argued that his message was too focused on personal gain and lacked the depth of traditional Christian teachings on suffering and sacrifice. Despite the criticism, Copeland's influence continued to grow. His ministry became known for its positive message and its focus on the potential for personal transformation through faith. Many of his followers viewed him as a modern-day prophet, someone who could speak the words of God directly into their lives. His teachings helped shape the faith of millions, guiding them to believe in the power of their own faith to change their circumstances. Over the years, Copeland's ministry evolved. While he remained committed to the prosperity gospel, he also began to emphasize the importance of personal relationship with God and the power of prayer. He became an advocate for personal responsibility, urging his followers to take ownership of their faith and trust in God's plan for their lives. He spoke often about the need to walk in victory, to overcome obstacles, and to trust in God's promises of prosperity and blessing. As the years passed, Copeland's influence extended beyond his ministry. His success helped pave the way for other prominent figures in the charismatic and word-of-faith movements. His ministry and teachings influenced countless pastors, teachers, and evangelists who followed in his footsteps, embracing the message of prosperity and faith. His impact can be seen in the growth of megachurches and the rise of a new wave of charismatic ministers who prioritize faith-based prosperity as a central element of their teachings. In recent years, however, Copeland has faced health challenges and criticism, both from the public and within his own ministry. His health issues have led him to scale back his public appearances, and some of his followers have questioned his leadership. But even in the face of these challenges, his legacy remains intact. Copeland's ministry has outlasted many others, and his teachings continue to shape the way faith is practiced in many Christian communities. His son, John Copeland, has taken on a larger role in the ministry, continuing the work his father began, while Kenneth himself remains a revered figure within the church. Through it all, Copeland has remained committed to his calling, showing resilience even in the face of adversity. His ability to weather storms, both personal and professional, speaks to his unwavering faith and his deep sense of purpose. While some may question the specifics of his teachings, there is no denying the lasting impact that Kenneth Copeland has had on the Christian faith. His message of prosperity, healing, and victory has shaped the lives of millions, and his influence continues to be felt in churches and ministries around the world. As he enters the later years of his life, Copeland's legacy is not just about the wealth or fame he amassed, but about the millions of lives he touched with his message of hope and faith. His work has left an indelible mark on the church, and his teachings will continue to be studied and debated for years to come. Kenneth Copeland may not be the most universally accepted figure in Christianity, but his impact on the modern faith movement is undeniable. He will always be remembered as one of the most influential voices of his time, a man who believed in the power of faith to transform lives, even in the face of personal trials and struggles. His legacy, for better or for worse, will continue to shape the landscape of evangelical Christianity for generations to come.